Alright, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I think that instead of Miles Morales, we should be getting Silk in Marvel Rivals. Welcome back to another video, guys. SmackYoG here, and you heard me right. Today I am pitching Silk to come to Marvel Rivals. Not only that, I will be talking about the season as a whole alongside her secondary hero that would come in the season, as well as the main antagonist. Now you guys already see the thumbnail of the video, so you can already get a picture of what I'm cooking up here. But let's talk about Silk. Cindy Moon is the same person who got bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter Parker, so that would immediately give her a connection to Spider-Man within the game. She is going to be more agile, quicker, just have way more dexterity within the game, as she does in the comics. I know a lot of people were playing around with Miles Morales being a strategist and making kits around that, but I think it works much better for Silk in this instance. So we're going to have Silk be a strategist within Marvel Rivals. I think that just works way better within her kit and her moveset. Playing off her, dexterity, I want her to be similar to Spider-Man in the sense that she can move. I don't want her flying and zipping across the map, so we may not incorporate her web slinging, but definitely some wall climbing action, some sprints, just incorporating dashes into her moveset, not so much swinging, I guess you could say. Although she does have very similar powers to Spider-Man, there are some differences, mainly being her web shot. So I want her primary fire to be her organic webs coming from her fingertips. Now, the way I see this playing out is it's going to be like Echo from Overwatch, her primary fire. Those pulsars coming out of her fingertips, those 3 shots burst. It's not a hit scan weapon, they're more projectiles, so it would work perfectly for Silk. Not only that, she has her claws. Those retractable claws could be super useful, especially if she's getting jumped in the game. Defensive maneuver. She has 2 forms of attack. Now this could be a frenzy form, so you could go into a secondary form like White Fox does, which could work. But you could also have it as a secondary ability on a shorter cooldown that you can just, scratch people up, poison them, whatever it may be. Now speaking of poison, Silk's very unique in the fact that she can, break down and survive toxins, I guess you could say. Now, I'm not talking about Toxin, the symbiote, although I did talk about him earlier, but in a separate video, but her body can resist those toxins and, obviously withstand a bunch of impacts. I want to play around poison for her whole kit. Now, I want her webs to stack on some sort of poison effect on enemies and also be able to heal her allies, giving an antitoxin to her own teammates. I think that would be a very unique skill to have. It would kind of be similar to Anna's Nade, I guess you could say, from Overwatch, but not as overpowered. And you can poison people, but more so, maybe I take it back, right? Not so much poison enemies with the webs, but definitely antitoxin her teammates, so she can have that healing per se. And I think I would want her to have toxin or poison in her claws, so when she gets jumped and she does attack in the frenzy and scratch up and claw her enemies in that really face-to-face encounter, in those face-to-face encounters, she can poison them. And what that looks like is just damage over time, right? You just scratch them and you're still doing small damage across a short period of time, and if they're low enough, you can finish off an enemy like that, which I think would be pretty unique and I think would work. Now, in terms of her healing, like I said, antitoxin from the webs, you can incorporate a dash, you can incorporate, some more stuff with her webbing. She's been able to use her web to make different constructs, which could help. She can make hooks, different tools, even clothing. So maybe even just shooting a web cloak to her allies could be a burst heal effect. Instead of just her primary healing, you could do the burst heal, so you could do even more healing output. Now, I'm not too sure what the ultimate would look like, but you get the idea. And obviously she has the Silk Sense as compared to Spider-Man's Spider Sense, and she kind of gets a better sort of threat detector than Spider-Man does, so that could also help her deal with all that. But yeah, I think that could be a very unique strategist as compared to just Miles Morales. Nobody really talks about Silk, so I just wanted to bring her up. And honestly, she's one of the spider people that I would rather consider to come to the game as compared to like Spider-Man 2099, because all he seems to have is claws. But people are going to talk about him and how he's a vampire. Speaking of vampires, right? I'm not going to go on the tangent and talk about 2099, Miguel O'Hara, however you pronounce his last name. Speaking of vampires, though, you guys saw the thumbnail for the season. I want to talk about the two biggest vamps in Marvel. Now, obviously, that's going to be Morbius and Morlun. Now, before I get into Morbius, I want to talk about Morlun. Now, Morlun is the big bad for Silk. He's always been the main antagonist for her. He's always been hunting her. He's trying to, I don't know, consume her life energy. Pretty much. Simple as that. He could be the big bad of the season. Now, Morlun and Morbius have clashed from time to time. Morbius, I also see working as a strategist. Now, if you couldn't tell, Morbius is going to be my secondary pick for the second hero within the season. Silk is going to be the spider person. Morbius is going to be the anti-hero because Marvel Rivals loves to make anti-heroes in the game instead of just giving us villains. But Morbius could work. I like him. I think he could somehow fit within the dynamic. And taking a look at the game already, we already have a ton of vampires. We got Jubilee, we got Blade. Obviously, we had Dracula as a main antagonist. So just going even further off of that, we could incorporate even more villains that are vampires and even more heroes that are vampires and just have a fun, I don't know how else to explain it. Have a fun time just putting different types of people in the game and, working around mysticism, supernatural entities. It just doesn't get better than that. But you could play Morbius as a tank, but I don't think that works, to be honest. I kind of want to see him as a strategist. So double strategist season, I think a lot of people would be a fan of that. So give me props, like the video, if you like that I said that there should be two strategists in this season. But yeah, the guy should be able to fly. Let him glide. The guy is a vampire. But yeah, no, he's tough. He could kind of play like Daredevil in a sense, as hear me out, as a strategist. I know that's super weird. Daredevil obviously has his echolocation because he's blind. You could do something similarly with Morbius. Have him make some sound waves to pretty much do the same thing. You can lock on targets, have night vision, whatever you want to do with it, but have him play like a bat because that's his whole gimmick, right? Like he is like a fake vampire. Him being a fake vampire, he still is able to tolerate toxins and poisons. So, maybe even you could make him a Vanguard and just have him like tank a lot of anti abilities and just not be impacted by them. But yeah, I don't see that working, right? But you could make it work, right? You could just make him a brawler like Hulk, but just like much more interesting. No, but he is a doctor, right? Dr. Michael Morbius. So coming from his background, he should 100% just be a strategist just off of that, right? And he has the mystical curse, so maybe his ultimate is just him becoming like super vamped out and just craving blood. And just the more damage he does, the more violent he becomes, the more blood he consumes, the stronger he gets for a short period of time. I don't know. I don't really know how either of Silk's or Morbius's ultimates would work, but think of something like that. I'm not too familiar with Morbius in general as a whole, but the guy's a vampire. He can tank a lot of poisons, toxins. He has his claws, he has his fangs. You can give him different sort of attacks. You can give like a blood art mechanic for him to just consume blood from his enemies and then, inject blood into his allies to heal them. He can also have a stun ability because he can hypnotize people. I think that'd be cool, right? You can lock on a target and you can just stun them. You can stun them, you can control them a little maybe. I don't know. I don't know how far that would go. Maybe that's the ultimate. You control an enemy on the enemy's team, right? You control someone. That could work, right? You just lock eyes with them and then control them and then fight the other team and yeah. That'd be interesting. I think that'd be a cool mechanic for him. But yeah, definitely a two strategist season. You guys get the history. I mean, he's just cool. Both Silk and Morbius are cool, and obviously Morlun ties them together within the season. So I see that as more so a perfect season in my eyes. Although that's probably not going to ever happen, but it's a unique take, and it goes with the story. And I'm sure that Netties could cook something fire up for that. I mean, just kicking it up even more for Morbius's healing factor. That guy's healing factor is insane. He could just regen everything. So yeah, nothing really crazy there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Would you prefer Miles Morales over Silk? I think Silk is a much more unique pick. I think she also fits the strategist role much better than Miles Morales would. I know people would be out here talking about how he should be able to go invisible, how he can still swing, how he has electric powers. You can make all that work. I don't mind even forcing him to be a strategist. Some people are going to be like, oh, you're not forcing anything. He just fits his strategist role. Silk 100% fits the strategist role. You make her agile, you make her quick. You can lower her health pool. I don't mind. I don't care that much, especially if she is super mobile. If she's a super mobile character as a healer, definitely lower her health pool. That's one way to balance it. And when I was talking about her dashes, maybe she can dash to her own allies. That could be a nice movement mechanic for her. Instead of like a TP, just dash to anyone on your team, pretty much. And then you could give some team ups with different Spider people on the team, like Spider-Man. You get like a radioactive power. I don't know what kind of team ups these guys would have. But yeah, I think Silk works perfectly. You get poison on her fingertips for the claws. You give her the shooting of the organic webbing as her primary fire and her way of healing. It could also even like slow people down. I just thought about that. You could stick webbing onto enemies and slow them down after stacking like 3 consistent shots. That could be something, interesting. You could also mark prey. I don't know. Silk would work perfectly, I think, for this game. I think she'd be fun. I think she'd work and she'd be cool. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Should Silk come to Marvel Rivals? And how do you feel about Morbius being the second hero to come as another strategist? Because he is a doctor, because he can heal himself, because he can regenerate, because he's, immune to toxins, he can stun people. He's going to be a lot more DPS heavy like Ultron, but he can still, manipulate blood to heal his allies, use echolocation, which would be super dope, something similar to Daredevil. I think he would also be super unique for this sort of season, this game. And how do you feel about Morlun being the big dog and antagonist, right? Morlun always hunts Silk. He definitely beefs with Morbius, so a lot of vampire play, a lot of spider play. We already have vampires within the game like Blade, like Jubilee. Dracula's already in the lore. Silk, spider person. You can just add that great web of things growing even further and further. You can just expand the lore even further with these 3 characters, and you can tie so much more together. Now imagine if Morlun comes to the game as the antagonist, and then him and Dracula become playable in the future. That'd be super cool. A lot of vamps coming to the game. I think that's dope. A lot of bloodlust, right? It'd be super cool. Yeah, that bloodthirsty mechanic could be something. And yeah, maybe even Morbius could, like, the more damage he does, the more healing he does. That could be a really interesting bloodthirst mechanic. Like, the more damage he does to his enemies, the more he's able to heal with the blood of his enemies to his allies. Obviously, the more he'll be able to heal himself, but you guys get the gist. It'd be unique, I think, and something cool to play around, like actual vampire mechanisms, if that makes sense, rather than just Blade being able to just tank a budget in. I really love playing Blade, man. He's just cool, but he doesn't scream vampire to me. He's also the Daywalker. He kills all the vampires, which is super edgy and super cool, but you guys get the point. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Silk, Morbius, main 2 healers, main 2 heroes who just so happen to be strategists on this season. Obviously, it's going to be Morlun for the big, bad antagonist. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, guys. Catch y'all in the next one.